Revealed, 8 spine-chilling true cemetery horror stories from Kentucky that will haunt your dreams. Rebecca had always adored the quiet charm of Millgrove. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, where kids played in the streets, and the days drifted by like uneventful grasshoppers hopping through the tall grass. But lately, whispers had turned her peaceful world upside down. Rumors about the old cemetery at the edge of town stirred a dread in her heart, a place her late husband once cherished, now painted with shadows of uncertainty. It began on a starless night when shadows flickered at the corner of her eye. She brushed them off as fatigue from her demanding night shifts as a nurse. But when her children woke screaming from nightmares of faceless figures and cold winds, dread seeped into her bones. As the full moon rose, the cemetery's outline loomed ominously, whispering tales of betrayal and lost souls like a siren, calling to her heart in the heavy night air. Desperate for help, she approached the local police, her voice trembling with fear. "You have to believe me. The cemetery, something isn't right." They laughed her off, waving away her concerns like an annoying fly. "Just old stories, Rebecca. Nothing to worry about." But she was left alone, wrestling her panic, feeling the weight of indifference suffocating her. Who could she trust? A chill prickled her spine as the flickering lights along the path to the graveyard pulsated with an eerie rhythm. They felt like the heartbeat of the town, drawing her in deeper. It was unsettling. She never wanted to visit that place, where her husband's spirit might linger, but the whispers grew louder, they seemed to beckon her. She could almost hear his voice among the shadows, urging her closer. Before we continue, she thought of the warning flashing in her mind. "I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Every night, shadows danced at the edge of her yard. Familiar faces turned cold, eyes darting with unshed secrets. Her children played outside less and less, sensing the same fear that gripped her heart. Then she stumbled on something that shook her core, a rumor about the former mayor, adored by Millgrove, steeped in darkness himself. His connection to the cemetery tied him to the very roots of the town's conspiracies. Rebecca felt betrayal in the air. It was thick, suffocating. She peered out the window and saw the townsfolk whispering beneath the glow of street lamps. They looked normal, but she felt their gaze creeping into her soul. The dread twisted deeper when she recognized a figure lingering too close to her family's porch. This shadowy shape watched, waiting, lurking. The whispers grew, turning into a deafening roar, echoing every secret she'd stumbled upon. Did they know about what lurked in that cemetery, or were they part of it? Fear wrapped around her, squeezing tighter as the full moon loomed above like a cursed shepherd, leading her to a truth that promised to be more horrifying than she could ever imagine. What lay beyond those grave markers? What could unfold in the darkness? The hunt for answers was just beginning, and with each heartbeat, she was drawn further into the depths of terrifying uncertainty. The next night, a restless wind howled through the open windows, carrying with it the faintest cry, a voice she almost recognized. Rebecca couldn't shake the feeling that it was calling her, urging her to come closer, to confront whatever lay within the cemetery. The shadows clung to the corners of the room, twisted figures that whispered and hissed, their breath cold against her skin. She barely slept, haunted by visions of the old grave markers looming over her, like sentinels waiting for a lost soul. Every creak of the house echoed in her chest, and when dawn finally broke, it brought with it a sense of urgency. Her children played in the backyard, unaware of the darkness looming over them. They giggled, chasing each other, but Rebecca's heart raced as she scanned the horizon, searching for that ominous figure that had watched them the night before. "Mommy! Look!" her youngest shouted, pointing at the gate. A dark shape lingered just on the other side. Panic surged through Rebecca. "Get inside now!" They rushed indoors, and she slammed the door shut, locking it with trembling hands. Every instinct screamed at her, there was something wrong, that presence wasn't gone. It was patient, waiting. She grabbed her phone, desperately searching online about the cemetery, digging through old town archives, anything that could provide clarity. The more she read, the more she felt the fabric of Millgrove beginning to unravel. Stories emerged from her search, tales of missing townsfolk, echoes of anguished cries heard on moonless nights, and whispers about the mayor's shady dealings with the dead, speculations that the cemetery was more than just a resting place. It was a gateway. As temperatures dropped and dusk settled in, Rebecca set her resolve. She had to confront the cemetery. With a flashlight clutched in her unsteady grip, she hesitated at the threshold of the cemetery's wrought iron gate, each step heavy with fear. The air grew thick as if she were walking through treacle. A blood-red moon hovered above the tombstones, illuminating the haunting inscriptions. She heard them again, the whispers, clearer this time. No, this wasn't just the wind. It was a cacophony of voices pleading, urging her onward. "Help us," they murmured, "free us." Rebecca's breath quickened, ice gripping her spine. She stumbled into the yard, the flashlight beam dancing wildly amidst the tombstones, each name an echo of lives long lost, each grave a testament to the darkness buried just beneath the surface. A sudden chill swept over her, the ground beneath shaking ever so slightly, as if something was waking from a long slumber. Then she saw it, the figure. It appeared at the far end of the graveyard, shrouded in darkness, watching. Her husband? No, it was not him. This was something far more sinister. Its eyes glinted in the moonlight, reflecting a ferocity that set her heart racing. Trying to turn back, she found her feet rooted in place, a cold dread holding her captive. A sharp wind swept by, and the whispers fell silent, replaced by a low growl that rumbled from the shadows. "You seek the truth? Then join us." The ground beneath her began to tremble, and Rebecca's mind raced. What had she awakened? What must she confront to save her family? The power of the grave whispered promises of betrayal and desperate choices unwillingly thrust upon her. As her foot finally broke free, she spun, running back toward the gate. But as the cemetery loomed behind her, Richard's voice pierced through her mind, clearer than ever. "You can't run from the past." What did it mean? Panic surged anew as she surged toward home, but the shadows stretched dirtily behind her. They weren't done yet. Would she discover the horrific truth of Millgrove, or was she running into a trap set long ago, staked deep into the ground she stood on? Time was running out, and she felt the weight of the darkness closing in. Rebecca sprinted down the path, the glow of the streetlights behind her a weak shield against the encroaching darkness. Her heart hammered wildly in her chest, each beat a drum of desperation. She risked a glance over her shoulder, hoping the figure had simply been a figment of her fear. But no, the shadows writhed as if alive, reaching toward her with long, skeletal fingers. "Mommy!" Her children's voices were distant echoes now, their laughter a cruel reminder of innocence amid the chaos. A part of her wanted to reach for them, to scream that everything would be all right. But how could she promise that when she barely believed it herself? She burst through her front door, slamming it shut and throwing the bolt with a fierce determination. The sound of her breath filled the room, a ragged reminder of the desperate race to safety. They were safe, for now. But she could still feel the icy fingers of that presence creeping at the edge of her mind. "Mommy, why are you scared?" her youngest asked, eyes wide with confusion. Rebecca knelt, pulling the child close, grounding herself in her embrace. "There's just a storm outside," she lied, knowing full well the storm brewing inside Millgrove was much more sinister. She peered out the window. The streets of their once comforting neighborhood were shrouded in a thick fog. Shapes flitted back and forth, obscured by the gray haze. Faint whispers floated through the cracks in the old wood of the house, too quiet to understand, yet too clear to ignore. After a moment, she released her child and pulled herself together. She had to find out the truth. If there was one thing she had learned from her frantic research, it was that the stories held power, whether the tale was true or twisted. One terrifying thought gnawed at her: was Richard really gone, or had he become a part of that malevolence within the cemetery? With renewed resolve, she gathered her courage and reached for the old family relic tucked away in the attic, an ancient journal filled with notes and drawings her great-grandfather had made about the town's history. Maybe it held the key to uncovering the shadow desperately lurking at the edges of her life. Each page she turned revealed chilling stories of people who had been consumed by night, townsfolk wandering off only to vanish. As she flipped through the worn pages, desperation clawed at her throat. And then she found it: the cemetery. A sketch depicting a door carved into stone, a hidden entrance that promised a connection between the living and the dead. But etched within the frantic lines of her ancestors' pen was a warning: the doorway is not just a passage. It demands a sacrifice. Rebecca's instincts yelled for her to stop, to put the book down and never look back. But how could she? The fate of her family lingered in the balance. Night began to descend once more, the air thick with dread. An urgent knocking echoed from the back door, sharp and insistent. Her heart dropped. Was it just the branches tapping against the wood, or something far worse? She gripped the journal tight, her knuckles whitening. The knocking came again, more insistent now. "Mommy," her children whispered from the hallway. Shadows of concern danced over their small faces. Her breath caught in her throat. She couldn't respond. The threat outside was real, and whatever lurked in the cemetery was not done with them yet. The knocking stopped, and an unnerving stillness settled over the house. Then, to her horror, she heard the door creaking open. Her legs felt heavy, chains of fear binding her as she turned to face the darkness creeping back into their lives. "Rebecca," the familiar voice echoed hauntingly through the house. It was Richard. But something twisted and wrong echoed in every syllable. He wasn't alone. Would she have the courage to confront the nightmare lurking in the shadows? Or would she lose everything in her futile quest for the truth? Rebecca froze, her heart thundering in her ears. The voice carried a weight that chilled her to the bone. Every syllable slithered through the air like a cold breeze. She could feel her children's tiny hands gripping her waist, their eyes wide with confusion and fear. "Mommy," the youngest whimpered softly, drawing closer as if that could shield them from the horror unfolding. "Richard?" She managed to choke out, desperation clawing at her insides. A desperate part of her wanted to believe it was him, but another part recognized the darkness wrapped around his voice, like a shroud that signified he was not alone. "Come to me," he beckoned, the words trailing off, almost dissolving into a murmur that threaded through the shadows of the room. As his figure emerged from the enveloping shadows, she saw him against the thin light pouring through the open door. His countenance was familiar yet grotesquely altered, a mask of twisted grief etched into his features. His eyes, once warm and inviting, now burned with a hollow glow, reflecting something far more sinister than the man she had loved. "Get back!" she shouted, instinctively shielding her children with her body. The journal slipped from her grasp, hitting the floor with a thud that echoed unnaturally loud in the oppressive silence. "Please, Rebecca," he murmured, voice dripping with an unreal charm. "I only want to see you again." "No!" she cried, shaking her head violently. "You're not him. You're not." The door creaked open wider, revealing silhouettes behind him, figures dripping with shadows, faces obscured and twisted. The air thickened, suffocating her as their presence seeped through the cracks in her sanity. She could hear whispers, a haunting symphony of her name merging with the sound of soft sobbing, laughter, and despair. "Join us, Rebecca." Her breath quickened, panic knotting her stomach. She couldn't tell if those voices were from Richard's family, lost souls from the town, or something worse, something hungry. "Mommy, what's going on?" It was a question laced with the innocence of childhood, a question that hung painfully heavy in the air. "Stay behind me," she demanded, inching backward, heart racing as she cast around for escape. The other figures behind Richard edged forward, drawn by a magnetic pull that sent shivers crawling up her spine. The cemetery's hold was undeniable, unyielding, a powerful force that blended the line between the living and the dead. Help us, we need you, they murmured in unison. She recognized the tone. It was her neighbors, voices she had once laughed with, trusted when trouble brewed. And now, they were grotesque shadows, flickering dangerously close to her fragile family. No, no! She screamed. You are not my neighbors. You are not him. But deep down, a whisper in her heart questioned everything. Was it true? Had the curse consumed them all? The air crackled with anticipation, filled with murmurs and wails, pulling Rebecca deeper into the shadows looming around her. Come with us, be whole again. Richard reached out, fingers stretching, almost brushing her cheek. In that moment, the sinister spell nearly pulled her in, but a thought ignited her survival instinct. If this twisted reunion was real, what sacrifice would it demand? Suddenly, her voice found strength. If I go, will they be free? She challenged, standing defiantly in the doorway, the bitter taste of her decision coating her tongue. The shadows paused, a moment of expectancy hanging heavy in the air. Only then Richard whispered, the shadows behind him ebbing, flickering as if the very air trembled with tension. What would she choose? Would she risk everything for those lost, or would she fight, tooth and nail, to keep her children safe? As the figures swayed in uncertainty, the overwhelming question clung like fog around her thoughts. Could she pull Richard back from the abyss, or was she destined to join him in the cursed night? Silence enveloped the house, oppressive and thick. The moment stretched long, time suspended on a precipice. She could feel the walls of her reality beginning to close in, and then the whispering resumed, growing louder, sharper, urgent. It was an invitation, it promised power and despair. Just one step forward, Rebecca. Could she stand firm against the tide of darkness closing in, or would the whispers drown her in their haunting allure? The shadows around Rebecca coiled tighter, a living, breathing entity eager to snatch her away. She could feel the heat rising from her children's bodies behind her, their confusion morphing into terror. The soft glow of Richard's figure flickered unnaturally, like a dying bulb struggling to stay lit. Help us, the whispers begged. Join us. No. She shouted back, a desperate plea tearing from her chest as she shifted her stance, her small ones pressing against her. What choice would save them? The urgency vibrated through her, a wild pulse in the sinking gloom. I want to leave you. You don't have to die, only come to us, Richard insisted, his voice like honey coated in ash. Behind him, the other figures swayed like reeds in a cruel wind, their empty eyes burning into her soul. It was an allure she once understood, now warped and sickening. Mommy, please, the youngest's voice tore at her heart. She could feel their small bodies trembling, their fear wrapping itself around her like a shroud. That in every desperate attempt to maintain the thin shred of hope, she clung to the belief that there had to be something redeemable about Richard. Something that lived beyond the void that now consumed him. Tell me what I must do to save them. She cried out, her voice cracking under the weight of her own disbelief. Sacrifice is the key, he whispered, and it felt like icy fingers gripping her throat. Rebecca's mind raced, heart slamming against her ribs. Would it take her life for theirs? Did love demand such a price? Richard's hand stretched further, languid and inviting, while the figures behind him began chanting her name, their voices merging into a cacophony. Rebecca, join us, be free. Suddenly, the walls of reality wavered, ethereal visions spiraling before her eyes. Memories of laughter, warmth, and light dashed through her mind, instantly replaced by chilling reminders of what she had lost. Stop! She gasped, clamoring for clarity amid the chaos. Do you not miss us? The shadows wailed, closing in, their voices dragging at her sanity, mixing her thoughts into an open void of despair. Just as desperation threatened to consume Rebecca entirely, something within her snapped. The haze of hopelessness shifted to something sharper, a surging fight ignited by the need to protect her children. You are nothing! She screamed, breaking the hold of despair, filling her voice with the burning fire of defiance. I want to be a part of your darkness. And in that moment, the shadows recoiled as if struck, darkness rippling away from her like a creature wounded. She stepped forward, fueled by raw, primal courage. Let them go!" she shouted, eyes locked on Richard S. For the first time, uncertainty flashed across his twisted countenance, a flicker of the man she loved breaking through the gloom. "I can't," he murmured, as if the shadows squeezed him tighter, pulling him back into the abyss. Rebecca didn't hesitate. "Open the door. Open the way." She could feel the surge of power in her voice, a command that even the undead whimpered at. The shadows howled, shrieking in disbelief at her bravado. The air shifted, the tension like a tightrope stretched taut. Silhouettes leaned closer, faces creasing, anguished and hungry. "Your choice is binding, Rebecca," Richard whispered, his edges blurring like smoke. But Rebecca stood strong. "I choose life." She felt the words explode from her, and as if her resolve severed the dark tendrils, the atmosphere trembled violently. Was it a promise or a curse? Would her rebellion catalyze salvation, or would it unleash horrors she dared not imagine? The ground quaked beneath her feet. A flicker of light pierced through the oppressive dark, revealing an old, crumbling tombstone at the edge of the yard. Across the grave, the name was barely legible, but the history clawed at her thoughts. Should she seek it out? What secrets lay buried there that could save them all? "Rebecca!" The figures wailed, the darkness pulling tighter than before, furious at her defiance. The tombstone loomed in her sight, whispering of ancient pacts and forgotten lives. Could she unveil the past without becoming ensnared in it? A silence stretched, heavy and suffocating, all eyes living and dead fixed on her next move. And then she took her first step towards the grave, heart pounding with dread and determination. The air thickened around Rebecca as she stepped towards the grave. Each footfall felt like a plunge into the depths of uncertainty. The whispering figures writhed and hissed, their insidious voices clawing at her consciousness, weaving terrifying images and memories she fought to reject. "Do you want to be with us forever?" one shadow rasped. It slithered closer, its face shifting, contorting into a grotesque parody of Richard's once beloved features. "You can't resist. You want to know the truth." The sight burned her, yet she forced herself to keep walking. The tombstone loomed larger, etched in dark stone, the letters now apparent. Margaret Hollis, beloved wife and mother. A date had been crudely scratched below, marking a death long before Rebecca was even born. What secrets had this woman held? Why was this name, this grave, calling so insistently to her? The chants grew louder, urgency filling the air. "Margaret, Margaret, join us!" Open the door. The ground trembled beneath her, as if warning her of the old, rotten truths buried deep below. A low moan rippled through the shadows. "She was cast away, just as you will be." They were all cast away. Their bitterness was palpable, laced with anguish that pulsed through the night like a taunt. Why did she die?" Rebecca breathed, her voice barely more than a whisper, but mirroring the rising tide of dread coursing through her. "Sacrificed," came the reply, echoing around her like a death knell. "Not all loves are pure. Not all sacrifices are noble." Suddenly, a sickening vision crashed into her mind, a past life wrapped in tragedy. Margaret's face appeared, crying out in horror, her children writhing in despair as shadows closed in. "I was powerless, trapped in choices just to protect them." "No!" Rebecca cried, clutching her head. The revelation sunken like a sharp blade, leaving her gasping for air. It was both a plea and a declaration she would not meet the same fate. But the shadows began converging, swirling like 1,000 snakes tinged with malice. "You will join her. You will become a part of this legacy forever." The chill in the air wrapped around her throat, suffocating any semblance of bravery. But still, a flicker of Richard's face erupted in her mind, a glimpse of warmth beneath the haze of shadows. She was not here to fail. "I want to be bound by your past. I will save my children." As if reacting to her defiance, the earth trembled violently. The tombstone vibrated, a powerful sigh escaping from the grave. In that moment, the air hummed with an odd energy, and cracks began to snake through the ground, dark roots breaking free like claws reaching for freedom. The whispers turned into banshee-like screams, clashing against each other, begging her to stop. Leave. Turn back. They chorused, hysteria rising. The shadows plunged forward, encircling her with grasping claws of darkness. Her pulse thundered in her ears. This was the moment they could pull her down into the dark abyss, or she could unravel their curse. She lunged forward, clutching the tombstone, fingers digging into cold stone. She cried out Margaret's name, fueled by desperation. I call upon those who came before. Silence engulfed her as the shadows paused. For an instant, the night held its breath. And then a deep rumble vibrated, the graveyard vibrating with the weight of a long-forgotten magic awakening. A blinding light erupted from the cracks, illuminating the space around her as the shadows shrieked in rage, flinging themselves back against the brilliance. Rebecca's heart raced as she felt a surge of strength course through her. Was this the key? What ancient pact could she unleash? Would this fight save her children or condemn them? The ground beneath her echoed with furious cries as Rebecca felt the pull of secrets waiting to drag her down. She stood amidst swirling chaos, breathless and defiantly shouting Margaret's name again, unsure if her call was grounded in hope or fear. As the light consumed the night, she accepted the truth. Was she ready to face whatever lay beyond the veil? And then, as the shadows spiraled away, a distant cry caught her ear, a familiar, haunting voice calling out in desperation. Mommy! She staggered back, trembling. What awaited her now? In the clutches of both light and dark, would she have the strength to forge a new path, or would she be destined for the same fate as those lost before her? Light engulfed her, a searing balm that drove back the shadows, but it also brought uncertainty. Rebecca's heart raced as she felt the warmth coiling around her, urging her to step into the radiance. Yet the cry, sweet yet tainted with fear, echoed in her mind. Mommy! She turned, looking frantically through the mist that began to snake away, hoping to see her children. The graveyard transformed before her, headstones now shimmering under a ghostly glow, revealing names etched in sorrow. Each one seemed to sway, whispering dark secrets she couldn't comprehend. Rebecca! A voice called out, familiar but distant. It was Richard, pulling her from the fog of terror that enveloped her. You have to come back. His words cut through the chaos, bringing clarity to her muddied emotions. But where was he? The light dimmed suddenly, and the shadows crept back, licking at the edges of the illumination like flames tasting the air. She grasped the tombstone tighter, her knuckles bone white. She needed to act. The spirits were shifting again, coiling oddly, as if sensing her hesitation. Stay with us, Rebecca. The voices hissed, distorted by despair. The truth is here. Why fight it? I want to let you take me. She screamed, her voice piercing through the layers of haunted whispers. But doubt gnawed at her resolve. What if she was already too late? The ground rumbled again, responding to the call of shadows. Cracks widened, and from the depths emerged bones tangled with dark roots like the fingers of the dead begging for release. They grasped at her ankles, icy fingers that sent shockwaves of fear up her spine. Margaret, Margaret! The whispers returned, less of a chant now and more like a song of mourning. Was this the echo of the woman's name that reached into her soul? Squeezing her eyes shut, she willed herself to think of her children, to picture their faces. Sarah's bright laugh, Jacob's earnest expression, it grounded her to the world above the grave. I'm coming. I will not abandon you. The spirits roared in fury, swirling violently. She stumbled, eyes darting between shadows as they darted at her from the corners of her vision, each one murmuring secrets only the damned would know. Join us, Rebecca. Abandon your children. Embrace the past. No. She shouted again. It was a declaration. I will not let fear choose for me. With a surge of adrenaline, Rebecca seized a pendant that hung around her neck, a gift from Richard. Its surface glimmered briefly, resonating with the energy swirling around her. She lifted it high, the light intensifying, a bright beacon in the dark. The shadows shrieked in unison, a cacophony of rage and desperation. They surged forward, a tide threatening to drown her in their anguish. But she braced herself, channeling every ounce of determination, whispering Richard's name along with Margaret's in fervent prayer. "Help me." And just like that, she felt a shift. The earth quaked, the shadows retreated, recoiling as if stung. "Do you dare defy your fate?" A voice boomed. Another figure emerged, cloaked in darkness but with a shimmering aura surrounding it. It held an air of authority and dread, eyes glinting like shards of glass in the night. "Who are you?" Rebecca gasped, struck by fear but unable to back down. "I am the Keeper," it hissed, "and you, Rebecca Halloway, are a key. Open the door, or remain forever bound." Her lungs tightened. Door? What door? And what lay beyond it? Choose, or lose everything. In that moment, the luminous pendant fell from her hand, spiraling towards the cracks in the earth. A bright spark fluttered at the edge of the void, illuminating something dark and ancient lurking within. Would she leap into the unknown to save her children or lose them forever? As the shadows surged once more, claiming the graveyard in an icy grip, Rebecca's heart hammered against her ribs, teetering on the edge of choice. What darkness awaited her should she step forward? What horrible truths were still hidden? "Rebecca, the choice is yours." The crash was deafening as Rebecca's pendant hit the ground. In an instant, the light flickered, casting a dim glow that fought against the encroaching darkness. The swirling shadows trembled, hesitating as if uncertain. As her heart raced, she felt those chilling fingers still clutching at her ankles, rooting her to the spot. Enough games, she thought. A primal scream coiled in her throat, battling for release. She needed to break free. The anguished whispers crescendoed, rising like a storm. Angry spirits begged her to join them, to forsake the living world. But amidst the chaos, the Keeper's eyes locked onto her. "Choose," it commanded, the darkness swirling around it like a living shroud. "Step forward, Rebecca. Find the truth, or perish in ignorance." A chilling thought slid down her spine. What awaited beyond that door? Did she even want to know? No. She cried out defiantly. "I will not lose my children." Yet as the shadows writhed, a horrifying realization clawed at her heart. The darker aspects of her own life began to emerge from the veil of the graveyard, memories of choices she had made, ones she wished to forget. Could this truly be a test, an unrelenting trial of her very soul? "Mommy!" The piercing cry of her daughter echoed, slicing through the murky air. Her own desperation surged, a flood of protective instinct. With a sudden rush, the earth beneath her groaned, splitting wider. A gaping maw, dark, black, and eternal, opened seemingly just for her, a vortex of despair that promised to pull her in. The thought of Sarah and Jacob fighting against the tide of shadows lodged painfully in her heart. Why is this happening? A hiss of laughter resonated from the Keeper, like chalk on metal. "You think love will save you? The truth is far more twisted." Then, through the swirling chaos, she saw a flickering light. It wasn't the pendant, but an image, a frail, ghostly version of her children, their faces warped by fear as they reached for her. "Mommy!" They cried again, and the pain in her chest felt like her heart shattering. "Don't listen to them." The Keeper spit, its voice dripping with malice. "Their cries are bait. They are lost, just like you. Embrace your fate, it is inevitable." In that moment, doubt flickered like a candle in the wind. The shadows creaked and crackled, whispering promises of power and freedom, taunting her with the fact that she could be at peace, free of the burdens of motherhood. What if her decision could lead to something greater? Something darker? Only you can open the door. The Keeper pressed, its tone now conspiratorial. What lies ahead could change everything. You could be free. Rebecca shook her head fiercely, her resolve hardening. "You're lying." She felt the warmth of the pendant's remnants, an echo of Richard's love pulsing through her. "I believe in them." The shadows raged, shrieking in fury around her, but the light from her memories gained strength, an incandescent glow brightening the graveyard. She leaped forward, heart pounding, eyes intent on the darkness beyond. Yet just before she reached the edge of the void, the keeper's voice rose in a menacing crescendo. "Remember, Rebecca. The price of truth is often too steep." Her body shivered with dread, but she pressed on, ready to face whatever nightmares awaited on the other side of that door. As she stepped forward, a tether stretched taut between her and the light, her own pulse mingling with the beat of the graveyard, a countdown to a decision that would seal her fate. What other truths lay hidden? Would she find the children she loved, or something far worse? With the shadows swirling in chaotic fury, Rebecca's breath hitched as she plunged into the unknown. The moment she crossed the threshold, it felt like stepping into ice water. The coldness enveloped her, seeping into her bones. The void was more than just darkness, it was a heavy weight, thick like fog, making each step feel laborious and filled with dread. Shapes flitted within the shadows, elusive and fleeting, their very presence a reminder of doom. She strained to see, to grasp at anything that made sense. Was this a place of lost souls? Were the spirits of the graveyard waiting to claim her, or was the keeper's promise just a cruel deception? "Mommy." The voices of her children echoed again, clearer this time. The haunting melody drew her deeper, each word tugging at her heart. Were they truly here, just beyond this curtain of shadows? Sarah? Jacob? She stumbled forward, desperation fueling her strides. The dimness shimmered for an instant, revealing a path that snaked through the darkness. Wisps of light flickered along the edges, guiding her deeper into the heart of whatever this place was. She could see something. The outlines of figures, no, they were memories, swirling like leaves caught in a gust, fragments of her life she had buried and forgotten. Trembling, Rebecca reached out toward a memory of her children laughing, carefree. The warmth flooded over her, wrapping around her like a protective hug. But then it twisted, morphing into moments of sharp despair, the last time she'd seen them before everything shattered, their small faces, stained with fear. "No." She withdrew her hand, fighting the dark whispers clamoring for her attention. "Leave me alone." As she pressed on, more memories began to emerge, each one shattering her resolve. Her husband, Richard, standing at the entrance of their home, disillusioned. The heartbreak in his eyes when they fought, when she made choices that pushed them apart. The keeper's voice slithered through the thick air. "You see? All you have is a facade. The truth will expose your failures." Suddenly, everything went quiet. The memories paused mid-air, hovering, ready to cascade down on her like a torrent. Rebecca gasped, startled, searching for a way to escape whatever was coming. The silence felt mocking, oppressive, as if it was alive and waiting for her to crumble. Then, just as abruptly, the cacophony of words engulfed her again, drowning her in anguished cries. Each wail, each plea stabbed her heart. Faint echoes of her children's laughter turned into discordant screams, the faces in the shadows twisting into grotesque images of despair. "Remember this, Rebecca. They are never safe." The keeper's voice slithered around her, each syllable a chilling reminder of her doubts. "To save them, you must embrace the darkness." Her mind spiraled, caught between light and dark, hope and despair. What if she unleashed something more terrifying than she could ever comprehend? But what if it was her only chance to save Sarah and Jacob? With her heart pounding fiercely, she focused on their faces, etched into her thoughts. They needed her. As tears spilled down her cheeks, she shouted, "I will save them. No matter what." The air trembled with her declaration, and the swirling shadows hesitated for a heartbeat. Hope flared inside her, but it was swiftly snuffed out by a wave of darkness crashing over her. She stumbled backward as the keeper howled in fury, the shadows becoming a tempest around her. "Then face your truth, Rebecca. It will cost you everything. As tendrils of darkness reached for her, pulling at her very essence, she knew this was only the beginning. What would she lose to save her children? Would her sacrifice be enough? Before she could ponder further, she felt herself pulled into yet another memory, a glimpse of the woods behind their old house, a place she had promised they'd return to someday. A sudden stop. She gasped, the memory warping, thrumming with danger, what lay lurking within that familiar space. Would she find her children, or a confrontation that could tear her apart once and for all? Rebecca blinked, and suddenly she was standing in the woods behind her old house, the landscape unfolding like a faded dream. The branches rustled softly overhead, whispering secrets only the trees understood. Sunlight filtered down in small patches, warm and inviting. But beneath that warmth lay the lurking shadow of fear. Here, within this familiar embrace, she felt the pull of the past, her children, the laughter, the promises made before darkness had swept in. "Mommy!" The voice echoed in the stillness, pulling at her heart. She rushed forward, and deeper into the woods, something glimmered, a figure flickering just out of reach. Sarah's golden hair caught the light, her laughter echoed sweetly against the trees, merging with Jacob's. Hope surged through Rebecca, a flicker of warmth amidst the cold dread that surrounded her, but behind the joyfulness lay a persistent chill. Shadows slithered through the edges of her vision, fingers of darkness that whispered cruel truths. She could hear the keeper's voice, sharp like ice, cutting through the vibrant air. "Every choice comes with sacrifice, Rebecca. The cost of love may be more than you've prepared for." Ignoring the chill running up her spine, she pressed on, driven by the desperate need to embrace her children. "Stay close," she called, reaching out, the distance between them pulling taut like a string about to snap, but the shadows thickened, wrapping around her ankles and tightening their grip. Panic clawed at her throat as she forced herself to remember the warmth, their laughter, their smiles. "I'm coming." She pushed through the weight bearing down on her, the anxious whispers clawing at her sanity. Then she saw them, Sarah and Jacob, standing under an arching oak tree, illuminated by a beam of sunlight. Their faces, once fearful, softened with recognition, and Rebecca felt her heart swell. But just as she reached for them, the air shifted. The brightness dimmed, and the figures began to distort, merging into grotesque caricatures of her children, their voices turning sinister. "Mommy! We need you!" they cried, but their faces twisted into anguished layers of regret. Was this the darkness the keeper warned her about? "Join us," they whispered, laughter morphing into emotional daggers. "Stop!" she screamed, her voice breaking through the haze of despair. The warmth she clung to began to fade as the shadows pressed tighter around her. "This isn't you. I told you, Rebecca. Embrace your past, or lose them forever," the keeper echoed, its voice ringing with malicious delight. "No!" she cried, feeling the last bits of resolve codify like steel in her chest. "I want my love for them is stronger than your shadows." With that declaration, she recalled Richard's words, that their love was a fortress, unyielding against the darkness. The shadows hissed, recoiling as if struck. Rebecca summoned every ounce of strength, every cherished memory that floated in her mind, the tenderness of her children's embrace, shared laughter over family dinners, soft whispers at bedtime. "If I must sacrifice, let it be the darkness that takes me." In that moment, the ground beneath her echoed her determination, roots twisted upward, reaching like arms from the earth, toward the whispering woods. "I choose them," she bellowed, resonating her love with every ounce of energy she had left. As she dug into the deep anguish of her choice, the roots surged into the shadows and began to claw free lost souls, those that had been trapped by the cemetery's curse. "No!" The keeper's voice rose against a deafening chorus of anguish. Tufts of darkness peeled away, revealing lost souls, spirits pleading for release alongside her, and from that, she felt a wave of truth and clarity lighting within her core. The figures of her children flickered into their true forms, the warmth, the laughter, the smiles that blossomed like wildflowers, pushing away the darkness that clung so tightly. "Mommy!" They shouted again, joy blossoming as they rushed into her arms. She hugged them fiercely, feeling like she might burst from the sheer power of her love. The earth trembled beneath them, shadows retreating. Light erupted, engulfing everything in a warm embrace, banishing despair like a suffocating fog. The keeper twisted in rage, its shadow fading in the brilliance. "Remember," it howled, "darkness lingers even in light. You may win this battle, but the war is far from over." The shimmering light dimmed, revealing the woods once again. No, not just the woods home. She stood with Sarah and Jacob, their arms wrapped around her, their laughter echoing in perfect harmony. The shadows still whispered, but they were mere shimmers in the distance. "I got you," Rebecca murmured, tucking their heads under her chin protectively, every fiber of her being resonating with triumph. The echoes of darkness would linger, but she carved a path of safety where love could flourish. Nothing was perfected, but they were together. The darkness that once vowed to consume them now felt like a distant nightmare, a reminder of what could have been. "Let us go home," she said, her heart finally at peace. Each step forward felt lighter together, they defined a way through whatever awaited beyond, but in the shadows, the keeper's eyes glinted. A promise still unfulfilled, a tale far from finished. Until next time, a cold voice whispered, "You need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next chapter in our chilling tales. Smash the like button now to help feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel the thrill. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.